stand for a moment of silence, if you would, please. Thank you. Join me with the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. All right. Roll call. Mr. Williams is out tonight. I am present. Mr. Heater.
Present.
Mrs. Watasha Barnes Griffin. Mr. Irvin. Mr. Lowe.
Present.
Hey, I don't want to leave anything out now. I don't want no problem. Okay. Ms. Rhonda Ward is going to get us started tonight.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Mr. Dr. Bishop O'Neill and members of the board, thank you for giving me this opportunity. I've been excited about being back and being able to stand before you and provide just a brief update on what's happening in the diversity world. I will just jump right in. I started with our August quote for this month because I like it and I'm a quotes person. I think I've shared that before, but this quote says, "Diversity is about all of us and about us having to figure out how to walk through this world together." And that's so true, as we all know. And I like that quote for a couple of different reasons. The first one is, it is true. I mean, that's what we have to do, and that should be our focus in everything that we do, especially when we are working with a diverse group of people, right? And another reason I like this quote is because I think it kind of allows our educators to kind of think in a different light. It says that diversity is about us working together, and we have to think about how we are going to meet the needs of all of our students. They are coming to us from all walks of life, various backgrounds, and so we have to try to figure out as educators, how are we going to figure this thing out, get these students, meet them where they are first, and then get them where they need to be, and that is successful, academically, emotionally, socially, physically, all of that. So that's the reason why I wanted to put that quote first, and that is the quote that should be on the website, and the quote that the administrators and teachers are using for this month of August. Next comes our pledge, and Dr. Melinda Massinio and I, she did our training, our cultural competency training in July. And when she and I sat down, I shared with her that one of our main points and main focuses in our strategic plan is to make sure that MCS is a safe and welcoming environment. And I shared with her that I don't want that just to be words, something that we say, but I want every teacher, every staff member, I want everybody that works in MCS to really believe that and act upon it. So we just don't want to read it, we just don't want to say it, but we really want to have a heart for that and act upon it. And so as I shared that with her, she says, well, how about a pledge? And I said, a pledge sounds great. And so we started to go through all the different points that I wanted to make and that we include when we talk about diversity. And so this is what we came up with: pledge to act in an inclusive way, first and foremost, treating each person in our district with respect, civility, courtesy, compassion, and dignity, which is what we want to do. The second one is pledge to value the intrinsic worth of every member of the community, respecting and learning in differences from each person, okay, that we come in contact with. No matter what their ideas are, their opinions, okay, we still have to respect them. And so that's something that I wanted to focus on, along with the third one, pledge to reflect and learn in my efforts. This one right here is kind of my favorite because we have to continue to learn from each other and grow and hold ourselves accountable. One of the things that I am going to stress to my school equity team as I meet with them is Yes, we want to learn and grow when it comes to educating our students, but we also need to learn and grow when it comes to dealing with each other. You know, we all come from different walks of life. We all were raised differently. We all come from just a different way in the world. And so we have to learn how to get along with each other. And that's teacher to teacher, teacher to parent. We all have to learn how to get along with each other. So we came up with this pledge, and this pledge is going to be displayed in every building. I am in the process of getting these blown up into like poster sizes. And once we do that, they're going to be displayed in the buildings. And I'm hoping that they will be like in the front, like as soon as you walk into the building, you will be able to see our MCS pledge. So that's kind of what we're doing, and hopefully you will see those once we get them done in the buildings, and we will be able to hold not only our students accountable, but we can refer back to it and hold each other accountable as well. So that is the goal with our MCS pledge. Diversity focus. As I mentioned, we did our cultural competency training back in July, which was a part of our summer PD. That cultural competency training was for our school equity team members, also our district equity team members, and our administrators. We also, before that, we did a poverty simulation training. We did this training on last year. It was a huge success. Carol Bradshaw from Second Harvest Food Bank did the training for us. She was our facilitator, did a wonderful job. The teachers that participated in it last year really enjoyed it, and a lot of them came up to me and said, hey, can we do this for the whole district? So it kind of came back this year by popular demand. And what I did was I've tried to be very intentional on making sure those school equity team members that couldn't be present last year were present this year. I also opened it up for our family navigators. I also included our behavior coaches, our specialists, administrators that missed it last year. Anybody that works with our students directly and closely, I wanted to make sure they were there for that training. And again, it was a success this year. Teachers that were there were saying, man, Ms. Ward, we really need this into all of our schools. You know, we need this presented and available for everyone, all of the teachers back in the buildings. And I said, I will do my best to see what we can do to make that happen sometime during the year. So hopefully we can get that done. I spoke with Carol about it, and she was all for it and said she'd be more than willing to come back whenever, you know, we were ready for her too. Dr. Melinda Massinio also performed a training for our bus drivers. This is a training that we did a couple of years ago as well, and it was not only for our bus drivers, but also our aides as well. We talked about not only just, again, getting along with the students and trying to meet them where they are, but also each other. And we had quite a few of them show up. And like I said, we included the aides as well, as we did a few years ago when we did it. A lot of them showed up. They got a lot of good out of it. They were very attentive. They asked questions, kind of gave some thought and input and ideas. So that was always really, really nice. We had that at Pruis Hall. Now our DET and SET visits, our district equity team, we've increased that this year. We've added 3 newcomers, I believe, Dr. Bob Hatfield, Mr. John Shrube, and Angela James, who is a math teacher at Muncie Central. So we thought that we needed to kind of include some other folks in there because we had lost a few members along the way. So we thought we would add a few people, and we didn't have any males. We didn't realize that, but we didn't have any males. So we decided to add a couple of guys. So it'll be interesting to hear kind of their input and their perspective and ideas on some things. And we will meet quarterly. Our SET, our school equity teams, I've already started meeting with them. I met with a group today at Muncie Central, and I kind of went through the cultural competency booklet with them, kind of talked about the different exercises that are in that book and any ideas that they may have that they can feel free to add once they are presenting that to their staff. And normally that's when the cultural competency training takes place, during the staff meetings. MEC, and I have down here MEC, Community Engagement. MEC stands for Minority Educators Council. I am so excited about that this year because I know that we have increased our minority teacher representation, and so a few teachers have already stopped me and said, hey, when are we going to get together? And what MEC is it's a support group for our teachers of color. That's simple. That's what it is. We will meet throughout the year. and we will come up with ideas, not only to support each other, but also how we can support our students. One of the ideas that someone had was a Mentor Monday. We may call it something else, I'm not sure yet. But what we will do is we will kind of take some students under our wings within the buildings who may not have that extra layer of support. It could be academically, it could be behaviorally, whatever the case may be, but we want to make sure that our students know that we care about them. It doesn't have to always be students of color. Any student who is struggling that may need an extra helping hand is what MEC is for. So we are there for all of our students, and like I said, the Mentor Monday, I think, is a neat little idea. We are going to single out students who may need, like I said, that extra support. And it may be a walking down the hall, give them a high five because you heard that they got an A on their spelling test. Or it may be a student who got in trouble twice. They were in the principal's office. Maybe you give them a high five if they can make it 3 days without being in the principal's office. So it won't require a lot of time, but I just think that it's important that those students know that other teachers throughout the building care for them. It could be a counselor. It doesn't have to always be a teacher. It could be a counselor or an administrator. So someone in the building to kind of just let that student know that, hey, I care about you and I want to see you be successful. Some other ideas with MEC, as you all know, the choral ensemble kind of is a stem off of MEC, and so we have already been invited to participate in the Mayor's Art Awards, which is coming up at the end of September. It's going to be at Southside Middle School. So I'm excited that we have an engagement that we are looking forward to, so we will be preparing for that as well. I also talked to some of our MEC members about maybe participating in other community events, such as maybe the BSU parade, our central parade that's coming up. So just being visible in the community, letting folks know that, hey, we do care about Muncie Community Schools having a diverse population of teachers in there that kind of can measure up and kind of halfway match or come close to our population of students, diverse students. So those are some of the ideas that I have with MEC. Like I said, I'm real excited about it because we have our minority representation has grown, and they are really excited about us meeting and getting started. So that's MEC and community engagement. And then HBCU and diverse CATS activities. Man, I am just super excited about HBCU and diverse CATS because I have been bombarded, if you will, with so many different activities for our students. And I just have to name a few of them for you guys. Or let's see, are they coming up? We have HBCU College Fair that's going to be held at Noblesville, in Noblesville on September the 7th. This is something that we did last year. Our students enjoyed it. I think we had maybe 7 to 10 students that went with us. They had door prizes, they had vendors there, and so the students were able to go around and kind of talk to different college representatives about HBCUs. So I'm hoping that we can do that again this year. CLD is Center for Leadership Development. They have a 16th annual college prep conference coming up in September on the 16th. It is $25 per student. I am working on us getting funding to be able to go to that trip. As you know, it's on a Saturday, and I don't mind giving up my Saturday at all because I think this is just that important for our students. It's going to be held at the Indiana Convention Center. Girlhood is a local event that is at Minnetrista, exhibit at Minnetrista, and so I'm really excited about some of our female students of color being able to attend that event, and I'm so excited that we get to walk over. So we don't have to worry about busing or anything of that nature. We can just walk over and enjoy the exhibit. I'm going to try to take as many students as I can. I've already spoken with someone from Minnetrista, and she said, sure, the more the merrier. So I will be working that out with the students. And by the way, our first HBCU meeting will be tomorrow. So can't wait to get to Central and meet with students who are already pulling me aside. Over the summer, I ran into parents, and they were saying, hey, sign my student up. She's coming. He's coming. And I said, hey, I'm excited, and I'm ready for him to be there. So I had to go over to Central this afternoon. I met with the school equity team, and one of the seniors, male students, he was walking down the hall. He's a very good athlete, and he said to me, Miss Ward, he said, I will be there tomorrow. So they're already making announcements about it over at Central and getting the students pumped up about our first HBCU meeting. Another event is called King's Fest. That is going to be held at Ivy Tech Community College in Indianapolis, another Saturday event. And it's going to be a career college fair. also workshops for young males, and they're also going to have a networking luncheon. What I like about King's Fest and King's Feast, I'm hoping that our students can participate. It's $10 per student. What I really like about King's Feast is parents have to be present to go with this one. And I thought, hey, that's perfect because it does take a village, right? So I'm hoping that I can get some parents that will go along on this trip. This trip is also opened up for middle school students as well. So I will be getting with the middle school administrators and seeing if they can round up some middle schoolers who they think might be interested in King's Feast. Another big one that's already in the works is Step Africa. It is an activity that we are going to participate in at Clues Hall. So excited about this one too, if you can't tell. But this event is going to be at Clues Hall on October the 5th. Special thanks to Mr. David Roof, who purchased the tickets for us. So he is sponsoring this trip, and he said, hey, we'll have 25 people. And when I say people, that's going to include students and chaperones. So I'm just glad I'm one of the chaperones because I'm looking forward to this trip. But so this is a program that I think our students will really, really enjoy. For those of you who may not know, I just got back from Africa, and so I can't wait to kind of share my experience and kind of educate them on what I learned from the trip. And so that's just going to go right along with this Step Africa performance that we will be going to. Let's see. Oh, Dr. Samuel Young, I've been working with him. He is the director of the IU Groups Scholars Program. And I'm very familiar with the IU Group Scholar Program because that was around when I was in high school, not too long ago. But, and I hadn't heard about it in the last few years. And so when I ran into him and one of my sorority sisters at the IBE Education Conference, she said to me, Rhonda, we noticed that Muncie Community School students are not represented. And I said, well, what can we do? And so she put me in contact with Dr. Samuel Young, who is the, as I mentioned, the director. So I will be meeting with them and trying to get some of our students interested and to participate in the IU Groups program. Let's see, as far as programs, Dr. John Anderson, and I know Dr. K is going to mention this, the Ryan Family Navigators Program, he and I met in the late spring. And so he wanted me to kind of partner up with them through Teachers College to see what we can do to get more of our students to qualify for that program. So I'm looking very forward to working with Dr. John Anderson. Let's see. I think that's about it. I tried to highlight as best I could some of the programs that I am involved in and trying to get some of our students to participate in. And then the last item is teacher recruitment with Dr. Bell. And so she and I are going to be kind of meeting on a regular basis, even more than we have in the past. And we're going to kind of collaborate on different programs and different recruitment fairs, if you will, and anything else that we can do to try to recruit more teachers of color. And I think that's all I have. Any questions for me?
Rhonda, last year, one of the things that I remember you coming back and just as excited as you are tonight about was the trip that we took to various colleges. And that, I mean, we're planning on doing that again, I think.
I hope so. Thank you for mentioning that because I meant to mention that in here too. I'm hoping we can get some funding. I am hoping because our students, now they really benefit from that. They were able to hear, and I think the highlight of that trip, they were able to hear firsthand from actual HBCU alumni and what those HBCUs did for them. And so they got some firsthand knowledge and heard some really good experiences from folks that look just like them, you know. They also kind of went in depth when we were there about some of the scholarships that are available and also some of the requirements, if you will, for some of the HBCUs. And they also hit on majors that some of our kids were interested in. So I am hoping that we can go back. That trip was expensive. So I'm hoping, and I'm going to be working on that to see if we can go back and take another group of students. Not that some of the other ones can't go, but take another group of students as well. So, yes.
Great.
Thank you.
All right, your first HBCU diverse cats meeting. So like, what's the agenda? Like, what are you doing with these students?
Oh my gosh, the first meeting is tomorrow, and I am going to, I think we're probably going to take the first 10 minutes, hopefully not too long, just getting them all signed in, because I have a feeling it's going to be a long list of people, a long line of people, I guess I should say. But get them all down on paper, because some of them will be new, as I already know. And then I'm going to talk to them about HBCUs, kind of tell them what the letters stand for, because I remember a couple years ago, students had no clue. So I'm going to make sure they know what they stand for, give them a little bit of history about HBCUs, going to talk about, of course, my experience. And then I'm probably going to give them a little assignment, because I believe in holding them accountable. And so I'll probably have them kind of research one that they're interested in. And then I'm going to go through all of these different programs that I'm hoping that I can take them to, and also give them my rules, because I do have rules in my HBCU club. You know, I'm going to talk about the whole behavior and getting their grades, the importance of getting their grades, and being able to balance school and outside curricular activities, because a lot of them don't like to get involved in very much, I'm finding. And so I'm letting them know that you have to get involved, you have to be well-rounded. You can't just do one thing. You have to put yourself out there, because when it's time to write you a letter of recommendation, I need to be able to say something more than just, he's a nice person, she's a sweet person. I need to know, what have you done? So we talk about community service, we talk about NAACP, the junior council, all of those things. So yeah, all of that will be on the agenda for tomorrow. And I only have that 35 minutes, so I'm gonna be rushing, but I'm gonna get it in as best I can.
Is that like advisory period, or is that before school?
Yes, it's during advisory period, which is 9:35 to 10:05, and Central is doing it a little bit different this year. I was going on Thursdays. Every other Thursday, I would meet with HBCU students or Diverse Cats, which is our multicultural club. But this year, Mr. Walker said that they're going to do it on Wednesdays. That's when the clubs are typically going to meet. So one challenge that I'm already foreseeing is a lot of our kids are involved. More and more of them are getting involved in all kinds of things. So if all the clubs are on Wednesday, and Mr. Walker and I already had this talk, and he said, well, we will have certain Wednesdays for, certain clubs. So I thought, oh, that works for me. So I'll probably do HBCU like every first and third Wednesday, or second and fourth, or whatever. So yeah, we'll come up with a plan and a schedule.
Just one quick comment. As passionate as she is about the subject matter, do you guys know Melinda Pacinio? Mm-hmm. Those two together have to be motivators to the answer. You could take your story on the road. I mean, she is so passionate about it too. Yeah. So thank you for what you do.
Thank you.
It's good stuff.
Yes, yeah. Yes, it is. I'm just anxious. I can't wait. I just can't wait to get started and get rolling. So tomorrow's a good day.
Like future sciences program. Like, so is that something that you offer to, not just to these club kids, but just to general public students?
Absolutely. Yes, absolutely. I'm going to be I'm just a recruiter. I guess you can just call me the recruiter, because I am constantly on the phone with parents and teachers and students, trying to get, students where I see students fit, a certain category, like training future scientists. For example, I reach out to the science teachers and say, hey, send me names of those science scholars in your classroom. And then they email me back with the list, and then I go from there, trying to recruit for things like the Training Future Scientists program. So, and then I have people like Sanaya who can kind of help me support, help me kind of push that. She and Jamar Clark, and they'll be there tomorrow, I know they're waiting on me. So I'll have them be able to kind of give their spiel as well. Because kids, they do better by listening to each other sometimes, in some cases, and not us adults, so. Yeah.
Just have one quick question.
Yes.
Going back to the pledge, which I really, really like. What is being done in addition to posting that? Is there anything being done in addition to that to kind of affirm kind of the tenets of the pledge here? I'm very concerned, not to look at things so much as a macro, but I mean, our nation is in trouble, and to be able to celebrate people who don't look like you, don't think like you, aren't the same political persuasion as you, that seems to be getting more and more difficult for adults. And so not to necessarily forget them, but we got to get to these students so that as they come up, they are used to thinking in an inclusive way. What is being done as it relates to the pledge itself to kind of affirm that with our students, our staff, and all?
Thank you for that question. I am hoping, and my goal is for the administrators and teachers to refer to it as much as possible in the classroom, in the hallways, in the office. I'm hoping that and that's what I'm going to try to emphasize, if you will, to the administrators and the teachers to feel free to refer to this, act upon it as much as possible. Like I said, in those classrooms, in those hallways, as much as possible is what I'm hoping, for a start anyway.
Sure.
Yeah, that's
Sounds
what I'm
great.
hoping for.
Yeah.
That's my goal.
And use it in your, in all your clubs, right? Like,
Yes.
there too, every year.
Yes, absolutely, yes. So that'll be added to the agenda as well tomorrow.
Well,
I'm not
and
gonna
we
get it
give
all
out so
in.
many awards. Wouldn't it be great then to be able to give awards to different students or staff
Ooh.
that we see are,
Yes.
being exemplifying some of the things in the pledge. So there are a lot of ways we could take that pledge and do a lot with it.
I like that. Yes, I love that.
It's
Love
great.
that. Okay,
Any other questions or comments? Thank you.
thank you.
All right, Allison, you're up.
Good evening.
Evening.
So Ms. Ward was sharing about finding community service opportunities for our students. So I just would like to say that was a great lead-in for me to say that we are also working to find community service opportunities for our parents and our community partners that we work closely with. So this just an explanation of these two pictures. One, I don't know if you had the opportunity to attend, some of you may have been there, but Mr. Page from Grissom Elementary hosted a wonderful welcome back to school night at Cooley Park, and he invited community partners, and so it was a lovely evening to see our families actually using the park in a positive way, and they were giving away backpacks, and some of our church partners had popsicles and ice cream, and it just was a lovely event. And the other is my daughter Nora joined me the first day back to school, and she was helping at Northside, helping students open their lockers. So we know how that can be a nerve-wracking thing for a new middle school student to be able to open their locker. So we're already back at it, calling on volunteers to help us in the community. So, oops. Okay. So I wanted to take a moment to share with you, because it's been a while since I've presented in front of you. And I think the last time I presented was about the evening before our wellness fair. So just wanted to share that we did have a wellness fair back in January. It was very successful, very well received. The community really enjoyed being there and having those opportunities to build relationships with our teachers, and our teachers had an opportunity to feel appreciated. So something as small as the little succulent plants that they were able to take away from George and Francis, they greatly appreciated, and also found opportunities for them to share resources with their students. So it was a great event that we plan to bring back this year. And then in May, some of you attended, we had a teacher appreciation event that was also very successful, and we want to continue to build that relationship with Minnetrista, not only for our teachers, but also for our students. As Ms. Ward said, she will be taking a group to see the Girlhood exhibit. And so we will continue to work with Minnetrista to provide opportunities for all of our schools. So we ended the school year, I did some tallying at the end of the school year, and we landed with 875 approved volunteers in our schools, which was a 30% increase from the previous year. I did have an advantage in that we were really inviting people to be more available in the schools post-COVID, but I think that we will see that trend increase again this year, because I'm already probably at least a couple hundred approved for this school year. And then also wanted to share with you that the CEC has been working to find ways to support our teachers and students. And we continue to, they assigned X amount of money, I forget how much exactly, but to go toward our attendance efforts. And so we bought 4,000 rack cards that have been divided up and given to all of our schools. And these are going to be shared at our big idea nights and family nights, and just sharing with families the importance of going to school. Sometimes people think that it may be okay to just miss a day or two, but when you miss a day or two repeatedly at the end of the year, you've lost a lot of instruction time that can prove to be problematic. So we're just wanting to encourage our students and families to show up for school. I think I provided a card for each one of you to have an example. So last year, with that being my first year, I decided to just let things exist as they had been, trying to support volunteer efforts that had already been established, but then also looking at those opportunities and trying to think, like, what could we do differently, or how could we do this better? So I work very closely with a lot of our collaborative action networks, or CANs, that are part of that Cradle to Career initiative. And I decided that we really need to make sure that we are aligning our volunteer efforts to match the work of the CANs. So then that way, as a community, we're building momentum in the same direction versus everybody doing something differently. So 3 areas of focus for this year will be that grade level reading, focusing on 2nd and 3rd grade, middle school math help, and our big idea nights. The big idea nights are going to be available in every one of our schools on a monthly basis. And it's going to be an opportunity for our families to come into the school to learn about community resources. We have assigned a theme for each month. So for example, August theme was attendance. So the schools were supposed to be sharing information about the importance of attendance. They had a slideshow that they were able to share that Jenny Smithson had prepared, and the families can also take the food that is made available that same evening. So we're just trying to find ways to make sure that our families feel welcome in the schools and that we're building those positive relationships with them. So mobilizing volunteers. We do have a huge win that I would say everybody in this room already acknowledges, that our community will always step up and they offer to provide support, be it maybe funding something or sending volunteers. And so we're just wanting to continue to work with our community partners and mobilizing people, again, with those goals that have been outlined in both our strategic plan as well as the CAN work. So we are working with a few different groups. United Way used to offer Read United in our schools, but we're going to be offering that a little bit differently this year. So MCS will be taking the reins, and we're going to offer it in every one of our schools. Previously, it was focused more in the Promise neighborhoods, but we're going to offer it to all of our elementary schools, and we're going to focus on 3rd grade and 2nd grade. We have groups such as Altrusa, trying to think of, there's a couple of other education community groups that have already said that they would be willing to help send in some volunteers. So we're going to be sending volunteers that will go in. We're going to train the volunteers. We're going to give them a foundation on the science of reading so that they can do the work that supports the new curriculum, so that the work that the volunteers will be doing will be in line with what the teachers are sharing in the classroom, and so that we don't want to have our volunteers going in and trying to teach a different method than maybe what the kids are getting in the classroom. So we're going to be training our volunteers, and again, focusing on 3rd and 2nd grade. We will also work to provide opportunities for math support for our middle school students. I will be attending the Math Can on Thursday to get some more information on what that's going to look like for our 2 middle schools. And then again, just working to build up those big idea nights. Big Idea is something that was already in existence before I came into this position, but it was put on pause because of COVID. Second Harvest Food Bank, I believe in cooperation with George and Francis Ball Foundation, came up with the idea for Big Idea. It's also something that's in other communities, so it may even be outside of something that they came up with. But when it was put on pause, and then last year we started working with Second Harvest to bring that back to the schools. We really want to make the big ideas, we want to make sure that all of our families feel welcome in the schools, and then the food that is available is really something that's available for anybody. And just wanting to make sure that all those resources are more accessible to our families. So a couple of other initiatives that we're working on. So the All Pro Dads, I don't know if you guys are familiar with All Pro Dads, but we're going to be working with community partners to offer All Pro Dads in all of our schools. I'm hoping to launch this in our elementary schools in September. I'm not sure why the font is different. It seems like it's faded. But so All Pro Dads was a program that was established through Tony Dungy, started it years ago. And it's going to provide our schools the opportunity to invite families in to be with their student, and they'll talk about certain values. Like, for example, they may talk about the value of patience and what does patience look like and why is patience important. And so I'm working to pair each one of our schools with a community partner that would be the team captain for the All Pro Dads program. And then the schools would just work in partnership with those community partners to provide that program to the families. And then again, I provided additional information about Big Idea Nights. I'm super excited about October. The theme for October is called the Big Crunch. So all of our schools are going to be doing activities related to apples. So Second Harvest Food Bank is bringing apples in for all of the schools. And so they could do either, maybe it's a science experiment related to an apple, or maybe it's going to be making a recipe with the apples. This is something that was shared through the Purdue Extension Office, and then they have toolkits that we're sharing with the schools that then they will share these ideas with the families as well. And our church partners are trying to work very closely with our schools to provide additional help during the Big Idea Nights. So with my work, one of my responsibilities is to support the Community Engagement Council. So again, the council meets monthly. We meet the third Thursday at 6 p.m. We had been meeting in the schools, but this year I believe we're going to make it consistent and meet at the Office of Community Engagement at Ball State. So if you ever have an interest in joining us for one of those meetings, that's where we will be. We, as a CEC, they're really trying to find ways to be more visible in the community. So we've done we've participated in some opportunities like I recently went to the Whiteley Community Picnic, trying to make sure that we're inviting volunteers to come into the schools, participated in the Juneteenth event that we had at Heacon Park, or not at Heacon, that one was at McCullough Park. But we're just trying to make ourselves more visible to the community so that they know the work that the Community Engagement Council is doing. And something else that they've done that I think is going to be successful, we've taken a CEC member and made them a liaison for each school. So all of the members would be available to help any of our schools, but we're really trying to build intentional relationships with the schools and the CEC. So that way, if the school does have a need, they know that they have a person that they could call and say, hey, this is an area that we could use support with. Is there something that the CEC could do to help us? So this is just another example of community partnership. This is Townsend Corporation, called over the summer, and they wanted to put together a school supply box for one of our schools. So I worked with Grissom, and they put together totes for each one of our teachers and classrooms that could be a community tote of supplies that could be used for the whole classroom. So I spoke with Mr. Page today, and that Townsend delivered those supplies to the school and was very successful. So also, I shared with Mr. Page to make sure that we maintain that relationship with Townsend, because they want to continue to have a relationship with our schools. And as we go to offer some of these career exploration opportunities, a lot of our schools are going to have career nights or career exploration opportunities for our schools. Townsend had mentioned that they would be interested in sending people that could be part of that conversation. So the wellness piece of my job, I've been working, so this summer, Tracy Harper and I kind of mapped out some resources that we want to continue to share with our employees. One thing that we realize is that sometimes we have benefits that are already existing that sometimes people don't understand, or maybe they're just not utilizing to their full capacity. So Tracy and I will continue to find ways to share that with principals and employees so that people are using the benefits that have already been put in place for them. And we will continue to, I'm hopeful to offer some maybe quarterly opportunities to invite employees to maybe participate in a meal prep class or a yoga class, and just some self-care ideas. Because one thing that I've realized both as a teacher and just being in our buildings, it's really easy as a teacher or a principal to not take great care of yourself because you get so wrapped up into giving so much of yourself. So just wanting them to have opportunities to have those self-care knowledge so they do take care of themselves. And something that I'm very excited about is the Montessori conversation that we are now having for Muncie Community Schools. So Dr. K last year traveled with a group from Muncie to visit a school in Michigan. And you also visited the Outdoor Learning Center. And so the takeaway from that visit was, what could we offer within our Muncie Community Schools that could look like what they're offering in Michigan? And so we're in the first stages, but we have a committee that we're putting together that will be part of this conversation. We're working to bring a consultant to the table to help us navigate what this could look like for our community. Because when I love the idea of Montessori and offering that for our families, I had never really heard about Montessori within a public school, offering it through a public school option. And so that is something that Mark Nardo has great experience. He's the consultant that we're working with, to bring him in to see what that could look like for an option school for our Muncie community families. So we have dual language, we have high ability, then we could possibly offer Montessori as another option for our families. So I'll be working with Dr. K and Heidi closely, and what that could look like for MCS. And then last but not least, I just wanted to share a picture. I think I had mentioned this before, but so this is a picture of 3 Central students. The one in the middle is my daughter Isabel, but we had 3 students that traveled to Europe over the summer as part of the Music Ambassadors program. So again, just another great opportunity that we're able to offer our MCS students. So we have Claudio, Isabel, and Gracie. Gracie and Isabel are part of the choir, and Claudio is part of the band, Muncie Central's band. So they had a great opportunity. So got lots of pictures from Isabel, from the Eiffel Tower, from the Louvre. She was having a great time, great experience. So any questions about?
Just a quick question. What is Montessori? I've always heard of it and I don't know what it is.
How much time do you? It is very difficult to, or it can be difficult to explain, but it is a pedagogy or educational philosophy in the way that you teach. It looks very different than what you would see in a traditional classroom. It's student-centered. You have guides, not teachers. And the guides work with the students to kind of follow their lead, and you provide all types of educational opportunities in front of them. And it's just as a different teaching style, teaching philosophy. So, but I would love to share more information with you. So I could get you some information if you're interested. So.
Ball Brothers Foundation, were they a part of that?
Yes, Ball Brother Foundation, I mean, because what we're looking at is not only Montessori education, but tying it with outdoor education. And so we'll be trying to also utilize Camp Adventure through this program as well. And the Mark that Allison's talking about, he was a principal, a very successful principal in IPS, and their Montessori program. The students actually were some of the highest performing on state assessments, and I Read 3 or I Learn using this approach in their school. And so we believe, again, it's nice to have options for students. So we have dual language, it's been extremely successful. I know Dr. Bell started dual language as a kindergarten program, and now it's all the way up to 6th grade. Our high ability program is always very successful. So how do we find another program to build into one of our buildings and offer more students a different option?
So, and it comes from, her name was Dr. Maria Montessori. That's why it's called Montessori. And that was a pedagogy philosophy that she put in place that was started in the 1900s. She was from Italy, and she was very successful. And the students that she worked with were students that a lot of people thought were too challenging, and she found it to be incredibly successful, so.
So Allison, if I wanted to volunteer, would I be able to go to the website, our website, and find a link to how can I volunteer?
So if
For the
you went
schools.
to the website, you would find a link for an application. And so then you first have to be
Application, okay.
approved, and then I start sharing what those opportunities are.
Okay, so there's nothing there that says, here's a whole host of opportunities. If you're interested in one of these, then fill out the application. It's reversed.
I haven't set it up that way. I
Okay.
could, but right now what I do is I send opportunities to the approved volunteers. And, but I have thought about, and actually on Thursday, I'm going to be having a conversation with Second Harvest and George and Francis Ball on different ways to share information with our community partners. But usually what I do is if a person wants to volunteer, they fill out the application, they get approved, and then I share what the opportunities would be available to them. But I can tell you that we will definitely need some more reading volunteers, but we're asking the reading volunteers to sign up for a commitment of going once a week at a very specific time, because we don't want to disrupt instructional time, so we have very prescribed times for both 3rd grade and 2nd grade. But if you know of a group that would like to help with either reading, math, or the big ideas, I would love to have that information. I'm also going to meet with a class from Ball State this week that they're looking at sending students to help with the big idea nights, so.
Good, thank you.
So then with volunteers, is it, you have to renew your application or reapply annually?
Annually,
Do
yes.
they get a ding to say, hey, it's expiring, or?
So what we did last year was we gave them a grace period of up to October. And so I work with our different partners, or I look through the list and I'll say, you know, you were on the previous approved list, but we would need you to submit a new application, so. So you're on the approved list, but come October, okay.
Ping, ding.
Do you guys have any other
Any other
questions?
questions?
Good stuff,
Great
thank
work.
you.
It's great. Great stuff, yeah. Thank you. All right, Dr. Bell.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Bishop O'Neill, board members, Dr. Kwiatkowski. We thrilled to have the opportunity to give an update for human resources. Of course, we have followed in with our strategic plan for Pillar 2, where we're covering recruitment, development, retention, and diversity. I know Ms. Ward mentioned diversity, where all of these topics interlock with all the other departments within Muncie Community Schools. So again, with recruitment, to identify and hire qualified staff members, some of the things that we have done and tried with recruitment is posting our jobs on Nimble and AppleTrack. And actually, Dr. K and I have a meeting coming up with Nimble to see about more resources that we can receive from that program that IDOE supports, where they have applicants and they track so many applicants. And so we will have more information on that. And then also we have started our Grow Your Own programs, working a lot with Ball State and Ivy Tech. And that work started last year. And so that's in progress, where we're looking at juniors and seniors that want to go down that path of education. And so there's classes they can take at Ball State and at Ivy Tech when they're in their junior and senior year, part of those dual credit courses. Along with student teachers, working with universities and I shared, I think it was back in March, the various universities that I've reached out to, including Ball State, Anderson University, Marian University. I've reached out to Purdue. And so just continuing to grow those conversations and those partnerships, because we want to attract not just Ball State student teachers, but student teachers from all over. And right now, we mostly have those from Ball State and Taylor University. But I went last spring and presented to a special ed class at Anderson University and encouraging them. They were in their junior year, so we encouraged them to sign up to be a substitute. And we had a few that did sign up. And then others said that they would wait and see what their class schedule looked like this fall. So I'll be reaching out again to those universities to get into their schools or do Zoom calls to get access to their students that are interested in education. Again, we started early in hiring. We did our, our staffing back in February and March and started as early as May with hiring for this school year. And continue throughout the summer to hire to make sure staff are in place. Again, advertising, we depend on Andy to help us with the social media, and then also personal contact of people we know and people that we contact, a friend of a friend or family member of someone that's interested. We ask them to apply. I've made personal phone calls, stop people in the grocery store, and entice them to come to Muncie schools. And then also another caveat that helps support recruiting teachers, we always throw in there that tuition discount that Ball State offers, where they're paying for 3 credit hours but can take 6 credit hours. And so that is also, even when we do new teacher orientation or when I've done second interviews, I mention that. And they're like, okay, I didn't know that. So they're really interested in that part of what we're doing. The other thing we're doing is the professional development, and this is a list from our summer activities. It's not a complete list, but it is a sample of all of the offerings that we offered during the spring or in the summer or even early this fall for professional development for our staff, mostly certified staff, but even some non-cert or aides had opportunities to attend some of these. So our new teacher orientation, a 2-day PD where teachers are receiving information from district office and then also information on Schoology, information on iReady. We also have our NIET. Today was our first early release where each building has their goals and focus of doing their professional development within their buildings. And so that for August, today was our very first 2-hour release for professional development. We also do weekly clusters, PLCs with the master teachers and mentor teachers in each of our school buildings. We had, I know Heidi was the driving force with CKLA for reading in our elementaries, along with the science of reading. And so a lot of that training went on in the summer, and then even in some days in early August, there was training for that. I know Ms. Ward talked about the cultural competency, the simulation, poverty simulation that was done. So this is a long list. I'm not going to read all of it because it's there, but a lot of professional development opportunities. And again, when I share with new potential candidates, we share that these are opportunities. And when it's done during the summer, there are stipends out of a grant. Staff members can attend for an additional stipend, and that comes from grant funding for them to attend the professional development, because we want teachers in their classrooms during the school year. So we do a lot of our professional development during the summer months. We're excited about our teacher retention rate. We've given multiple years here, but as we look since COVID, we dipped a little bit in 21, 22 with 79%, but we're excited that this past year was our highest percentage rate thus far with 84% of teacher retention. And so we continue to work on that with some upcoming strategies that we do to maintain, keep our teachers. Once we have them, we want to keep them. And so the new teacher orientation to start off the school year. We also have support from our master and mentor teachers that are pushing into classrooms already. We have, again, I share the professional development opportunities. That is great. We have really focused on lower class sizes, which we've added some staff this year. And so, but that was the goal, to have lower class sizes across our elementary classrooms. Definitely everybody cheers on the compensation committee and Mr. Jerome with the pay increase. And so we have seen a continued pay increase for the last several years, and that again has really helped us and supported us in recruitment, because there are some surrounding districts that their HR directors call me and is like, you're taking someone else, but our pay, they can't at this point compare to our pay rate for new teacher pay rate and where we are with years of experience. And so that has helped us to get some of our friends from neighboring districts to join the Muncie Community School family. Our wellness fair, Allison mentioned that, about the wellness fair that we had and some ideas that are coming up, because again, we want to do self-care. And so we know it's important that we care for our students, but then in our own time, we want to make sure staff, principals, teachers, administrators are taking care of themselves. And so Allison has provided a wealth of opportunities for that with the wellness fair last year, and then some other options that people can participate in, and she mentioned some in her PowerPoint. And then our teacher evaluation rubric, where that is our NIET, where you saw that professional development. We continue to hone in on what's going on in the classroom and what students are doing and what students need to be doing, and teachers are evaluated. Years ago, it was what I did as a teacher, but the evaluation rubric looks like, what are students doing, where are they starting, where are they ending, and what are their needs. And so it's more student-centered instead of teacher-centered. Some additional strategies, we have our naming teacher of the school year and the district, and we did that at opening day, which is always a fun time to recognize those that are excelling. And then our shining stars, which are the newer teachers, where was even a recognition for support staff and community people, agencies and individuals, and all of that was on our opening day. And so we do that yearly. Along with that is a stipend that goes along with those teachers that were Teacher of the Year, that is added to their base salary, which is another way to keep teachers here, because if you're doing a good job, you like to be recognized that you're doing a good job and then rewarded. Money always helps supports that and makes people feel good. Ball State, again, the continuing ed discount is something that helps people to stay, because they know that they can continue their education at Ball State and get additional degrees with that discount of 50%. And then stipends, the first stipend I believe will go out in September for support staff. Those that finish the school year with us will be a part of the list that were not in a days lost unpaid status. And then those that stayed throughout this semester will see a stipend in December. And then those that stayed throughout the spring semester will be a stipend in May. And so again, some extra incentives to encourage people to stay and continue the efforts within Muncie Community Schools. We also have our yearly teacher appreciation grant that has already been presented to the board, voted on, and submitted to IDOE. And that comes out in December, January, that the state gives with that teacher appreciation grant based on teacher evaluations back to the teacher rubric. Again, with community support, Allison mentioned some of the community support, and then, Ball State, Ivy Tech, different programs that they're doing within our buildings, motivate and encourage teachers that they see that it takes a village and the whole community is interested in the well-being of Muncie Community School students, academically, mentally, physically, behaviorally. And so that helps teachers to understand that, we have a good effort going here, and let's continue that. And then continued improvement on staff attendance. With that, as I shared earlier about stipends with support staff and being in unpaid status, there has been a concern, attendance concerns for the last several years for support staff and certified staff. And so we started last year with really honing in on individuals and doing the letters instead of having principals do the letters and have those meetings. The letters come straight from my office. I have the conversations from HR with staff members that go into non-paid status. At the beginning of the year, teachers and support staff are given sick days for personal sick days or family sick days, and then personal days every year. And if you don't use them, they carry over to the next year. And so people that have been here, this is their second school year, the anticipation would be some days rolled over to this school year and not exhaust all of your days. I know emergencies come up, medical. I know when I was in the childbearing stage of my life, I saved my days for when I had my baby. And then I got out of that stage of having babies and children have gotten grown. Then I was in the stage of ill parents, sick parents, elderly parents. And so I saved my days to make sure I can take care of elderly parents if needed, to use that family illness day. But we have seen greater number than we desire of people going into non-paid status. And so with that, we have a new system where before they receive letters, it talked about it could be termination, but that was just it. It talked about could be termination. So at this point, we have 3 letters with a rubric of 1 to 2 non-paid days. They will receive the first letter, sharing that if it's an extenuating circumstance, there's a process. If it's a medical concern, there's a process. Our handbook outlines what those processes are. And then that approval for that FMLA or extenuating circumstances would have to be approved by our CEO or her designee. And then if they receive that letter, that's communicated with the principal and the individual coming from my office at the 3rd or 4th unpaid day of absence, because they also receive no pay, and then individuals have to start paying for their insurance when they become in a non-paid status as well. So they do get that information. And then with the second letter, that would be a written reprimand and talking about possible termination. At the 5th or more unpaid day, aside from if it's a major medical extenuating circumstance, if it's an approved FMLA day, if it's just people aren't coming to work, they have moved into non-paid status or unpaid status, then that 3rd letter would be a termination letter.
And Dr. Bell's worked closely with our attorney and Amy Fox to help with this entire process.
Yes. And it wasn't just, oh, here's a bright idea. It was a year of collecting, after sending the letters, tracking the days and the number of people and the number of days of non-paid status. My thin binder became a pretty thick binder.
You shifted from the principals to HR. You just feel like that's what was the shift?
The shift previously, it was the letters went to the principals met with them or emailed them. Principals are so busy, and we found in HR, we're tracking down, trying to get those letters and the signatures. If they're coming from HR office, I know they're being sent, principals have a copy of it, and our attorney says we don't have to have a signature. We don't have to track down a signature. We'll do the send receipt, and we know, because I'm copied on it as well, because those emails I copy myself. So if I receive the email and the principal receive it, we know the individual received it as well.
So more about time.
It's more about time. It's more about being consistent, because one principal it may take them a week to get to the person. It may take another principal. Right now, today, I'm stopping what I do and do that. As far as HR, it's more consistent, where we're looking daily at attendance and we're sending it out as we receive those. Plus, not all principals may know the FMLA or the extenuating circumstances, because those come to Dr. K. They may not know, people may not feel as comfortable sharing with the principal some of their medical concerns, but have shared it with HR. And so taking that off the principal's plate, we have that background information, and without sharing it, we can then send those letters.
I'm curious, what percentage of our new hires come from the state of Indiana versus out of the state of Indiana? And can we or do we offer moving expenses for teachers? to relocate to Muncie, Indiana?
The percentage, an accurate number, I would have to look that
Roughly.
up.
Is it in the high 90s probably?
From out of state,
From
from
in-state?
Indiana, I would say high 90s.
Most of them are from
Most
I'd
of
say
them.
very high 90s.
Very high.
high 90s.
Right.
Not many come from surrounding states then?
Right. I
Okay.
just can think of a
Mostly
handful
Indiana,
that we've,
right.
Ball
So that's
State's helped us with some of
Yeah,
that.
yeah, yeah.
I was gonna say now we had some that, and I have moved to, like
Yeah.
the spouse works at Ball State, and so we hired the spouse to work for us, but it's very few.
Because I'm thinking about the moving expenses, they can be high. I mean, you can talk about $3,000 or $4,000 just to move from Evansville to Muncie, Indiana. Okay.
We always appreciate lots of ideas, though.
Yeah.
Keep
I mean-
sending ideas
Yeah.
our way.
Yes, yes. And then the last slide I want to share is our minority employment rate. And so that we continue to see an increase with our minority staff members. And for this school year so far, we're at 14% of minorities overall. So with 7 administrators, 44 teachers, 36 support staff. So we're excited about that. And again, I know Ms. Ward shared that we meet here and there to discuss opportunities and recruitment strategies.
You know, a lot of that goes to where you throw your net. So back to the Indiana versus out of the state. We go all across the state with our advertisements, I assume.
Yes,
Yeah, okay.
yes. Are there any
Great.
questions for me?
I have a question. Hopefully, this is not showing my ignorance. I've always been kind of curious about the transition to teaching and what does that mean in terms of finishing the degree, all of that. My parents were both educators for many decades, and I know things have changed from that time when my mother and father were going into teaching. There was you had to have a bachelor's degree and a certain degree. And then I think, if I'm not misquoting this, within like 5 years, you had to either start or complete your master's. I mean, there were some stipulations or whatever. What are the guidelines now?
So for transition to teaching, the individual has to have a bachelor's degree, and then they can apply. Ball State has a program, and then there's other programs around the state with various costs to the individual. But they have to have a master's. And so someone that was in the business world with a bachelor's degree but now wants to be a teacher can enroll in the program, take courses, and then once they are accepted into the program, we would hire them as a teacher, and they have certain requirements. It's usually online, virtual, that they would do within their program. So we track that they're completing not that they're completing their assignments, they're completing their requirements for transition to teaching. And then they could get a license in education, but they can be a teacher working. Once we receive that letter, say they're accepted into the program, we can hire them as a teacher. And as long as they are completing their requirements, they can have that transition to teaching approval and be hired as a teacher at the same time. So kind of like doing an internship, getting paid for it.
Okay.
The state's changed a lot over the years because to address teacher shortage.
Yeah.
And so it used to be that you had to, get your bachelor's and then you had to get a master's degree. And then that changed, that was actually in statute, and that changed probably about 15 years ago, probably. And then you just had to have your bachelor's degree, and then still teacher shortages. So then programs such as transition to teaching came about. And so, 10 years ago, we would never have put someone in that didn't graduate from the College of have an education background, and now you put others in and they are learning as they go.
Yeah.
There's also a new program called I Teach. And so I met with a lady, she emailed me and we met by Zoom because she's physically in Texas, but she's responsible for Indiana. And it is like the transition to teaching program, but she just gave me an overview, and it's newer for Indiana. And so it is very similar to the transition to teaching program, but they also offer scholarships for some of their students with, again, they have to have a bachelor's, but will help them get their teaching degree. And it's called I Teach, small I, capital T.
Okay. Has there been enough time passed where there's data to track some of these transition to teaching teachers to see? I would assume that they would be pretty proficient, just my opinion.
So I would say if Teach for America started where they would take people who wanted to become teachers that didn't go in that field, and they would put them in classrooms, and they have done some studies on Teach for America, and they have found that they have done a really nice job. Teach for America also had students who had some of the highest GPAs in college also. So, you know, they were attracting very motivated, dedicated students that went into education. And so there have been some studies with that, but that would be something now that we have Phil, that we could actually do a little informal research project of our own, looking at how some of our transition to teaching teachers are doing with students compared to your traditional teachers.
Yeah.
And to get their license, they still have to take the test, like that all teachers have to take to get licensed.
Sure.
So there's still requirements, and work through those.
They just get an opportunity to be in the field and in the classroom as they're, and being paid as
Right.
they complete the requirement. Okay, that makes sense.
Great work, great
That's a
work.
good question.
Thank you. This is great news here. This is great. All right, Dr. K.
Okay, well, first, you can see why Muncie Community Schools is doing so well. We have Rhonda, who, I think HBCUs should pay her a stipend for being their best recruiter. She does a great job, doesn't she? And then Allison, what a great addition to Muncie Community Schools. She is a difference maker for us. And then, of course, Dr. Bell always does great work for us. So I feel very fortunate and grateful to work closely with all three of them. Tomorrow, you heard Rhonda mention this, Muncie Central, in partnership with Ball State Teachers College, will honor a couple of Bearcat graduates who have been selected to receive the Michelle and Jim Ryan Family Scholarship. It's a full scholarship for people who are going into the teaching profession. And so we really want to thank Dr. John Anderson of the Teachers College for helping to organize the event tomorrow. And I can give a little note ahead of time. Lachey Ewing and Brian Whitley will be the two students that are going to be recognized. So we are excited for that. Andy, I know, is going to do a press release and trying to get some more positive information out about our students. Thursday, we have a special guest in town. Charlie Brenneman, known as the Spaniard, is a former Spanish teacher who decided to chase his dream of becoming a championship UFC fighter, and he succeeded. And he is really about, his message is about persistence and grit and overcoming different obstacles. And so he'll spend some time at both Central, North Side, and South Side. And then that evening event is open to the public, and he's hoping to be able to talk to community and parents. And that's at 6:30 at Central. And then Friday, we'll be having another great celebration, and that's with our new football and soccer stadium with a ribbon cutting that starts at 6:30. I would recommend people get there early. Chuck is out there counting spaces, and it's going to be tight. So any of us that attend, it would be nice if we park across the street and walk so we could save some of those spaces. If we have any grandparents or folks that need to be a little closer to the stadium to be able to get there. So it's just a beautiful stadium. Jim would be proud to know that the trailer with the porta potties has arrived, so we're going to be in great shape. We know he wanted to be first in line to check that out. And then next month, we're going to be partnering with the Civic Theater and the United Way of Central Indiana during the Civics production of Charlotte's Web. So I'll have more to tell about that closer to time, but that's going to be, the presentations will be held at Southside's Auditorium September 15th through 24th. So we're really making it a big event across all of our schools to get art and music and students involved in the civics production. So we're excited about that. Lastly, two more things. I'll make them quick. We just found out yesterday that we were one of 39 school districts to receive the Stronger Connections Grant, $400,000, which will help us fund a family navigator, a threat assessment team, extend summer programs, and provide transportation to our students who are participating in the Ball State's College Mentor for Kids program. They tried to use the MITS in the past and ran into issues with not having a lot of time for students to stay on campus. So we're thrilled we're able to do that. And then I just received notification that we've received $148,000 from the George and Francis Ball Foundation to support the CAN, the Social Emotional Learning CAN initiatives. And Jenny Smithson leads that. So we're excited about that as well. I know, Brad, this makes you very happy to see us bring extra funds into the district. So thank you.
That is great. Thank you.
Anybody have any questions?
Yeah, I just want to say, I was going to become a UFC fighter, but my wife wouldn't let me. So I just, so disappointed. So I'm just going to have
It's a
to
good
find
thing
something
you
else
took
to
her,
do.
good thing you took her advice.
You'll have to go, Thursday night at 6:30, and you could maybe be living out your dream through Charlie.
Thank you. All right, public comments, Mr. Yancer.
Oh, thank you. Rick Yancer, newsman and author. Although I can speak later about the budget, which I'm assured that there's not going to be a general tax increase because property owners have been seeing tax increases from firewood spending like government and education recently. I wanted to talk to you about what I mentioned last month about Iowa scores, particularly poor in Southside schools, like 1 digit as far as proficiency. iRead came out the other day, and I was optimistic that iRead scores came up in most elementary schools for 3rd graders. I didn't understand why they went down in East Washington that had better Iowa scores, but there still seems to be a problem with literacy. Now, I've heard here tonight about programs, about diversity that's needed, and to get more people involved in the school system, which is greatly needed. The bottom line, the education is still reading, writing, and arithmetic. And maybe I'm old school because I grew up in a township school, but the school system needs to bring up reading skills and math skills like now. I know you've got a lot of help from Ball State that pretty much runs this school system. And I saw a couple programs that I didn't really look at. It's on the agenda tonight. I heard a program maybe a month ago that you're bringing in a new reading program too, because that's the foundation of any education. And for other school systems to have better scores by just doing basics, it still baffles me why those testing scores are better than Muncie. And as you mentioned with the stadium opening Saturday, we've had a lot of questions about where you're going to park, since the parking lot between central and field houses fenced in. And I hope there is adequate parking there, given that, schools are taking in the YMCA. And I still hear a lot of blowback about having a faith-based group like that starting in Boulder and Vail being taken in by government and public education. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Yancer. Okay, well, we're going to move on to our consent agenda. Have any questions or comments regarding the consent agenda? I guess I was gonna just bring up, we have someone, Teresa Avila, who is retiring after 22 years. Appreciate that. Anything else in the consent agenda? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
Second.
It's moved and seconded. Questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. All right, thank you. Motion carries. On to the financial report. Mr. Jerome has been just waiting.
Thank you. Thank you so much. We have included in your board packet was our financial results, financial report for the month of July, and I still always like to report that we received our state basic grant. That number, the 12-month actual estimate there of about 43.6 million. That number could go up or down based on the ADM count later this in the fourth quarter. That's the current estimate for right now. Still tracking well with our cash balance at the end of July over $32.7 million in the total checkbook balance. Still education fund balance over 14.7. Still forecasting education fund balance over 15 million at the end of this year. We continue obviously to pay down the state loan at $50,000 a month, and then that ramps up in 2024, where it goes to $150,000 a month in the latter part of that year. So still doing well with the cash balances. I always like to show the graphs just where the total checkbook balance is, and then it shows in red the state loan. Obviously, that's continued to go down, and you see the trend. If you take away anything from the cash balance, you can see it's been going up. It always has those spikes where it probably gets the lowest in April and October, and that's because right before you get your local property tax draws. So that's just like rings on a tree. You're going to see it go down in those particular months. We're still tracking our appropriations and our spending each month against our approved budget, so we know we will continue to monitor that to not go over our approved budget for the year. And that really just kind of concludes my report. I know that we talked a lot about our budget a month ago, and we'll just continue to monitor that as we go to the end of our calendar year for the, it's hard to believe, as we approach the end of August, you only have then 4 months to go for that calendar year. So anyway, we'll keep tracking all those data points that we like to point out to you every month. So.
Great, thank you. Have a motion?
Okay, next thing, ECA.
Well, they have to take, they have to.
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
We have to, we got to approve.
Move to approve.
It's moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. All right, on to ECA stipend.
Okay. This is our, presented to the school board once a year, is our ECA stipend list. And it's not just always the ECA stipend, it's just a list of other payments that we make to our employees over the course of a year. The State Board of Accounts always likes to have a new list, if you could, approved every single year just for what you're paying your employees, just so you can track that against payroll. What you've seen here at your place or in your electronic copy, anything that was marked in yellow represents an increase, such as just reflecting, the rate went from $15.50 an hour on certain things to $16 an hour, and that reflected the movement in our overall change on some of the support staff positions. If you really get to we've consolidated substitute teachers. That's used to be at $75, $85, or $95 a day. That's now $105, which had been $105 for certain levels of education. Now we're just saying it's $105 at the starting point. And then if you see the several pages of the ECAs, a lot of it didn't change, as you can see there, for certain coaches or certain other positions in a school. I worked extensively with pretty much everyone you're seeing here at the table, with Dr. Reynolds and Dr. Bell and Dr. K, as we took input from the various principals when they added or made recommendations to add certain positions that we put on the list. So that's really what you have in front of you tonight. We're just asking board approval.
Part of that analysis was competitive, right? I mean, part of what we've tried to do every year is to try to compare as much apple to apple as we can, right?
Yeah, we did that a year ago very extensively, which had not been modified for a number of years. We tried to track it against other surrounding districts or other districts about our size. And that's why most of the changes were made last year. So we'll continue to look at that, if not every year, every other year, just to make sure that we're in the right ballpark on those rates.
All right, thank you.
And last year, when you made changes to quite a few of the coaching, the stipends for coaches, we didn't make changes to tutoring or professional development. So that's really like a catch up from last year. We wanted to make sure our grants and, our different budgets would support the additional amount.
Move approval.
Second.
It's moved in second. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Thank you. Purchase over 100,000.
Yes, we're asking for approval again to continue to partner with iReady for our assessment, our progress monitoring assessment, beginning of the year, middle of the year, and end of the year assessment for math and English. We will continue to partner with iReady and use those assessments in conjunction with our instructional materials to do some progress monitoring of our students. The bulk of that bill is paid for with the Indiana Assessment Grant, which is about 13-ish dollars per kid, half for English and half for math. So we dedicate most of those funds. We dedicate all those funds to cover most of this bill, and the rest of it we cover through the Title I grant.
Okay, great.
And this is about the fourth year. This will be our fourth year of using iReady.
Anybody have any questions about that?
Move approval.
Second.
It's moved in second, and all in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Reading futures.
Bishop O'Neill, members of the board, Dr. K, members of cabinet, thank you for having me this evening. I'm here to speak on Reading Futures, which is a virtual small group reading intervention in a Tier 3 context. We started this program this last year at Longfellow, Southview, and Grissom Elementaries, where 60 students received this reading service. We saw the most success this year at Longfellow Elementary, and we are hoping to duplicate that in this upcoming year and the following year at Grissom and Southview as well. We also served 22 students in partnership with the YMCA this summer. So when the students attended the summer camp at YMCA at Northview and at Grissom, they got to participate in the Reading Futures program as well to go ahead and give them that continued learning over the summer. We are in partnership with Mr. Stevenson, and we are working with Dr. Cassidy at Ball State to also bring in a research component and really looking more towards the 2024-25 school year. However, we will continue to collect data on our students. And this is also funded through our school improvement grant funds that we are currently working with. Are there any questions?
Just a couple. Some of the scores that I know Rick pointed to, there are some very low performing students that draw down that average really far, which is, I know, part of what we're aiming here. So the question I mean, it's about $2,700 a student. So this is not an inexpensive focus. So how are those 72 students chosen? I mean, I know we have more than that, unfortunately, that are struggling.
Correct.
These are obviously those that well, so I'm asking, I guess, how do we identify who these students?
We work with each of the building leaders and their master coaches, as well as Mr. Stevenson comes in, and we look at the iReady diagnostic data from the beginning of the year. And this year we're also, we'll add in the M-Class DIVLS data to make sure that we are making the best selection for that. We aim at looking at students who are in the 20th percentile or lower. And then we look at, are those students already identified as a student with a disability? If so, those students are already receiving services from our special education team. And then we look at the students that are remaining from that bottom 20%. Last year, we focused on grades 1 and 2, and we realized that first grade may not be the best target audience for this type of programming. So this year, we're actually going to be focusing on grades 2 and 3. Some of those first graders who were in that first cohort, we are going to go ahead and carry over to the second cohort so we can see progress being made. When looking at the data, like I said, Longfellow's iReady data showed substantial growth in that pocket of students. And there's a lot that we learned through participating all together last year, but particularly in the model that Longfellow used that we are going to then replicate at Grissom and Southview for this upcoming year.
Yeah, my question's not reflective of questioning why we're doing it. I think it's really important that if we can raise the tide here with some of these students that really have the potential to be successful, it's going to have a really good impact on our overall performance. And I just was curious as to how they were created or chosen.
So Dave, like we heard Rick ask, what should we be focusing on literacy? And this is one way that, it's an additional 4 days a week, right? Heidi, 4 days a week, an hour a day of additional literacy instruction for our students who need it the most by trained reading specialists. And so we wouldn't be able to find enough people who are really the trained reading specialists to come in and give this to them. So it's just another way that we're trying to be innovative and provide services for our students. We wish we could do this with more students.
And what's standing in the way of that?
Well, right now I would say funding a little bit, but through the school improvement grant, it helps. But this is still a fairly new, and we want to make sure that the research shows that it's a good investment for us.
Okay, thanks.
Mr. Stevenson also received some grant funding this year to do further research on that. So Muncie is a part of that as well, to show the research that is behind his work. So that hopefully will highlight Muncie in a positive light as well.
Sorry to go off script here, but we're about a month in. Well, not really. We're 3 weeks in, I guess, in the science of reading. Feedback.
Wonderful.
Excellent.
Absolutely wonderful.
I think, Rick, you were referring to that from a couple of meetings ago, but
Yes, it is going. The trainings over the summer were great. I personally think in my 16 years with Muncie, this has honestly been one of the best rollouts of a new curriculum in terms of prepping our teachers and teachers feeling confident. We offered lesson planning sessions prior to school starting. And actually, we took our early release day today to go ahead and work on the next set of lesson plans. So we're really trying to bring a collaborative effort to the table. I participated in the 4th grade session today at East Washington, and it was awesome. I mean, there are definitely bumps in the road because it's new,
Sure.
But if you go in those classrooms, 4th grade is currently talking about polio. I mean, it's just really cool to see the things that are going on. It's been great.
sorry to digress, Mr. President.
You're fine. It's good. Good stuff.
I'd move approval.
Second.
It's moved in second, and all in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign.
Great work, Heidi.
Yeah.
Great. All right. Let's open the budget.
Okay, thank you. At this point, we will have our public hearing for the 2024 budget. I'll just make a few introductory comments. We did solicit permission to advertise the 2024 budget at our August 8th meeting. Tonight is the public hearing. The budget adoption will be on September 12th. No board action is required tonight for us on this public hearing. Basically, just to summarize my Form 3 that was advertised, we're advertising a little over $65.7 million in the various funds, as I had presented last month. We have a current tax levy this year of 22.7, basically advertising about 36 million on the levy, knowing that it's going to be cut. That's what the DLGF does. So at this point, turn it back over to Mr. O'Neill, Dr. O'Neill, and you can ask for public comment for the public hearing.
All right, we have a time set aside for comment. Do we have any public comment on the budget?
Again, Rick Answer, I hope that we can be assured that there will not be a general tax increase with public education or government. I know the state cuts taxes, both local that has to move high, but I'll say it again that for public education system that has 30 million in cash, you don't need to borrow. That doesn't mean you should spend every dime of your cash on projects and live within your means. And I was glad to hear that you are doing something about reading, because I think that's the number one issue that a lot of parents and a lot of people are concerned about, seeing these scores, even though testing is somewhat, what would I call it, subjective. But again, we've seen general tax increases here over the last several years, not just by public education, but by government and by those who spend money they don't have as in borrowing. So if you can assure taxpayers we're not going to see any tax increase out of the blue, would be greatly appreciated. Because you, the city and county, represent the three biggest tax increases here in our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Yancer.
Yeah, that would conclude the public hearing.
All right. Close the book on the public hearing. Yeah, let's get a motion to adjourn. That's for just the public hearing.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
Moved and second, and all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. All right. Policy review.
I guess
Is that you?
usually that's Jim, so I better get, as you know, Amy Fox has been working with us to take all of our former policies and combining them if that is the best approach. Making sure that they are up to date with all the state code that we're responsible for. And then if any of them are not applicable to Muncie Community Schools, we may move to remove them and maybe just have them as guidelines rather than policies. And so with that, we went through this next batch. Every month, you're going to see a list of policies that we bring forward. And so you can see on the list the different policies, and most of them either or we're keeping as revised, or you could see where some have been retired because we already had the policy addressed in a different one.
Okay. Do we need a motion on that? I'll move for approval. It's moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. All right. Groove A,
I have
thank you.
just a quick question on policy. In the trustee or in the magazine we received last month, there was a good summary on the laws that had changed in the Assembly, General Assembly this year. How do we generally handle that?
So
Just like the name issue.
So I
is a
work
good
with,
example.
I work with Churchill and Antrim. So first of all, I have a school, not that I'm an attorney at all, but I do have a school law book in my office that I should bring to you sometime because I've highlighted every section that we're responsible for. And so generally when new laws come out, they'll have where the code is. So that gives me the first signal if that is going to be one that we're responsible for. But I never take my opinion because I am not an attorney. So that's then we work with our attorneys and they verify if that's something we have to do or not. Sometimes, like we find that there may be part of the law is under one code and another part's in another. So sometimes we're responsible for some and not all of
And when
it.
you say we're responsible, it's because of what, the statute?
Because the statute lists which codes that we have to
That-
follow,
that
which
Muncie has to
sections.
follow.
That Muncie has
Yeah,
to
okay.
follow.
That's kind of where I was going.
Yes.
Is, so you're kind of the first catch-all. We have great counsel, so
We do.
and they're keeping us up to date
They are.
on what's going on during the General Assembly, so we know what's might be out there because we've had those conversations. So,
Right.
okay, I was just curious because it seemed like a lot this year. And maybe that was just because, but it seemed like there was a lot of stuff
Right.
to have to wade through. So,
Yeah.
okay.
And that will be every year it seems like there are usually 100 new laws that are
Stuff.
added to new stuff, yes. But fortunately with 1315, we only have to worry about a small percentage
Okay.
of that.
Great, thank you. Sorry.
It's fine. Excellent. Any other dialogue tonight? All right.
What you are doing, you guys off to
Yeah.
a great start.
Absolutely.
Some good stuff, hearing some good stuff, and I'll be excited to be able to go in and kind of tour, see what's happening.
Yes, Cindy is setting up board visits, so we'll be
Right.
getting into all the schools again.
Perfect.
Excellent.
It's always a good time for
it's
all of
fun.
us.
Yeah.
Do we have a motion to adjourn?
So
Second,
moved.
third.
Moved in second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, aye, aye. Motion carries. Have a great night.